Sure. One of the things, obviously, is the shape and look of the building. The building that we're based on, the arena that we're based on, exists. You can go online and look in Klagenfurt, Austria. That building has a metal roof and a polycarbonate leading edge to the front of it. The hardest problem was finding a fabricator in the United States that would be able to replicate the metal panel, curved metal panels, because there's very few companies in the U.S. that do that work, and it became very difficult with compound curvatures when you got to the corners. They can do straight line curves, but when you got to the corners and you had things changing in two directions, that created some difficulty. So what we looked at is actually changing it to a fabric roof, and we evaluated several different types of fabric roofs. Bird Air, who is one of the largest fabric roof installers in the United States and the world for that matter, did the roof, and that actually helped us come in under budget, because that roof was far less expensive than the metal roof. And I think that's one of the elements that I think everybody enjoys seeing about the building is that it has a different shape. It has a little bit of a glow to it and a look to it. And actually, right at the moment, we're evaluating different lighting options for the exterior skin at night. That may go forward or not, but that's something that we're looking at. So that's one of the things that really gives you a different feel, because it does bring that European feel into it. And also, if you're sitting in the seating bowl, and today may prove prescient, if it starts to rain, probably 85 to 90% of the seats will not have any rain on them. Depending on if the rain's falling perfectly straight down, it'll come through the hole in the roof and land on the field and won't land in the seats. But if it's blowing one direction or the other, some 4 or 5 or 6 rows in front may get some rain. But that's one of the things too that's kind of different, or definitely different, is that all of the seats are covered. And that adds to the fan experience, I think. It also creates more of an atmosphere because of the curvature of the roof. It keeps the noise and whatnot within the building, and that's certainly something that's a little bit different that you don't see in any of the other buildings around the league or in any other sport in the United States. The other thing too is that we brought the seats, the first row of seats, as close as we could to the pitch, so that you weren't that far away. You're 23 feet from the sideline, on the sideline. So I think that's one of the nice parts about it. And we tried to keep the walls as low as possible, so that you weren't too high up and away from the pitch. This is just this roll of drawings, which is probably about 200 sheets. Is just electrical, lighting, and power drawings for the entire building. So you can imagine, I have somewhere in the neighborhood of I don't know how many gigs of data online for the various drawing sets. Architectural are the main drawings: architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, audio-visual, which is another large component of the building, and then miscellaneous furniture. Designs of bars and tabletops and everything else that goes into it. So it's a huge amount of paper that's generated, but also in the end, what we tried to do is make everything digital, and which is good, but it also creates a little bit, I won't say difficulty, because sometimes it's almost easier to pull a drawing out and flip to something than it is to digitally try to search for what you're looking for. So that's one of the things I would suggest as things go forward with any, technology has certainly changed a lot since I've come into the business, and how we deal with paper, how we deal with drawings. But the biggest thing is being able to find stuff at the end. So the databases that are kept and for everything is probably the key, most important part of the process. One of the things we learned was that the design for the European stadium, they have a different idea about certain things in terms of concessions, in terms of the amenities for the teams and the amenities for the staff. They are a little bit more Spartan in a lot of those areas. specifically on the concessions and restroom facilities within the building. We learned that in terms of concessions, they don't provide the variety of foods and beverages that we do at our concession stands. They don't do anything with portable concession stands. Everything is pretty much prepackaged, ready to go, and that's it. So their stands are much smaller, much more compact, and the process, obviously, people go through the line a lot faster because they're not waiting for something to be packaged or handed or put together. It's just pulled off the shelf, handed to them, they move on, and it's right out of there. So one of the things we learned from that, unfortunately, is that we should have made our concourses a little bit deeper. We're very nice on the east side. We have a lot of depth, a lot of space where lines don't constrict flow. But on the north and south sides, we have a little bit problem with flow, and it takes a little bit of balance of the competing demands between flow of traffic and people standing in line and being serviced appropriately at the concession stands. So all of that is a constant thing that has to be looked at all times, especially when they're thinking about putting in different portable stands and those kind of things. So that's one of the things I learned is in the design process. But perhaps one of the biggest things going back all the way to the beginning is that you really need to have the people that are going to operate the stadium involved in the entire process from the very beginning. Red Bull, when we took over, we did not have that team in place at that time, so we were relying a lot on past experience of the architecture team, of other people, of the requests that we got from the league, the requests that we got internally, what the team wanted. But in the end, what it came down to was when we did finally bring on somebody that was going to run the building, there were certain things that they looked at, and we began to understand that there were, things that we had either missed, very simple things, but you don't necessarily think about them, or things that they know from having been in previous buildings of what works and what doesn't work, especially with moving numbers of people in and out in a very efficient manner, and just servicing that group.
Let me go, Jake. I'll be back there 1 second.
So that's one of the most important things that I think I learned.
Well, unfortunately, I was not here during the design phase. I did get here for the construction phase, and it was interesting. I'm not sure, the need for the building was pretty obvious, and I think even just talking about the time that I've been here, going from 17,000 students to 32,000 students, and trying to get away from our teams playing in the Coliseum and playing in an on-campus facility, that was a need for a growing university back in the mid-90s, and much needed. What they did and how they did it and how they designed this facility is anybody's guess, really. And hopefully we get to take a little tour here, but it was, one of my sayings, I'm just an ex-jock running a gym here. And I was looking through the blueprints on my first week, month, or whatever on the job, and I had to go back to the architects and say, look, I'm looking at these plans, and I'm missing it here. I don't see the symbols for power and water in my concession stands. And they look over the thing, and they're like, oh, that's because there is no power and there's no water in your concession stand. So we had to make that adjustment. And so we're opening up a brand new facility, and you can see where they had to bring in the power and the water and the floor drains and all those things that should have been part of the original design. Now look like they were obviously done after the fact on a brand new facility. There are many, many examples of that. 24 outlets on the floor, 38,000 square foot permanent wood floor. There are 24 outlets where you've got electric and data and phone. Obviously we don't use the data anymore, and you don't use the phone anymore. Everybody has cell phones and we have wireless. But all the electrical outlets were on one circuit, 24 outlets on one circuit. So I'm not sure exactly who came up with that bright idea, but for basketball games, we have ad panels that sit courtside for the media, or that used to be for the media, now we sell those courtside seats. But as soon as we plug those tables in, we blow a breaker. So we had to rewire many things in this building, or just learn where things are. We have to go to every corner of the building just to turn the concourse lights on in the arena, where they should be located in one spot, as an example. We've already, in year one, I had to come in and put a York centrifugal chiller as a backup to our main air conditioning system, because it just could not handle the load of the events that we were doing in the facility. That backup system is now the primary system, and we've dumped $1.3 million into the original air conditioning system, and it just sits there as ready as a backup for us if we ever need it. So a lot of things going back to design, and of course, before we started the interview, I was telling you about the basketball court. Obviously, we're on a college campus, and they designed an 84 by 50 basketball court. Well, college and NBA play on 94 by 50. So when we go down and look at the court, you can see the outlets. They're in front of the basketball goal, and that's, we wire them in for the shot clocks and things, but they're actually in front of the basketball goal. We had to cap them off and rewire that. But when you extend the basketball court from 84 feet to 94 feet, and you have 6 basketball courts, something else has to budge. And you've got divider curtains up in the ceiling, you've got pull-out bleachers on the side. So invariably what happened was the side basketball courts are not 84 by 50 anymore. They're 84 by 47 feet, 0.5. And I don't think any AAU group has ever noticed when they come in our building that we don't have 4 of our courts are not legitimate size. The only time you can really notice, we had the Washington Wizards come in for 6 years for training camp. And when they were here and we put down the 3-point arcs, they actually extended out past the sidelines of the basketball court on the side courts. And only then did the questions come up. Thinking that we made a mistake on the 3-point line, we had to explain, no, our courts aren't 50 feet wide. And all because an architect designed the main basketball court at 84 feet and not 94, just spreading it out, had to take away from something else.
Was it an architecture firm that had designed previous sport facilities, or?
Yeah, it was an architect firm that previously did facilities, but I don't know if it was just a template. And really, I'm not going to lay blame on the designers, the architects. There's so many people that look at these plans, including the athletic department, the athletic directors, the coaches. At least that's the hope. And anytime we design anything else anymore, these days, I don't care if it's a sign that goes on somebody's door, if somebody leaves the university or leaves the department and somebody else comes in, and before we put that name tag up, I'm getting somebody's signature to make sure that it says exactly what it needs to say. I'm not sure why that ever got through, but out of 6 courts on our main floor, 2 are legitimate and 4 are not to this day, and it'll always be that way, but still successful.